Hello, everybody. David Shuster here. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is now facing accusations of insider trading. A new report by the Financial Times says that Hegseth's broker tried to make huge investments in defense companies just before the war with Iran began. Here's the summary from MS Now.
The Financial Times is reporting that a broker for Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth contacted BlackRock Investments about making a multi-million-dollar investment in major defense companies right before the U.S. strikes on Iran. That's according to three people familiar with the matter. The report says that the investment, which did not go through, would have involved massive defense contractors for the U.S. government.
Pre-war investments in massive U.S. defense contractors. Well, a spokesperson for Hegseth says the allegation is entirely false and fabricated, and that neither Hegseth nor his representatives approached BlackRock about any such investment. The Financial Times story was reported primarily by Paul Murphy, the news organization's investigations editor, and a journalist for CNBC Europe who has worked in the past with Murphy responded to the Hegseth denials with this.
Well, I can tell you the first byline on that story is Paul Murphy, who's the FT's investigations editor, someone who I've known and worked with. I first worked with him more than 30 years ago at the Daily Telegraph here in London. He is one of the best journalists I have ever worked with. And so I think there's probably more to this story than the White House and the US Secretary Defense Department is saying.
Congressional Democrats also think there is more to the story. They are demanding investigations into Hegseth and want to question his financial broker under oath.
So, top Democrat on the House Oversight Committee writing in a letter to Hegseth, attempting to profit from a war you helped engineer using insider information is shocking and outrageous. A spokesman for Hegseth says the article is entirely false and fabricated and is demanding a retraction from the paper. The House committee also sent letters to BlackRock and Morgan Stanley seeking more information. Both companies declined to comment. The SEC, which would typically investigate insider trading, also not commenting here. So Hegseth's latest financial disclosures show no major investment in defense stocks. He did sell shares of big companies, including Walmart, Apple, and Costco, about 1 week before President Trump announced his sweeping tariffs last year, Robin.
That's right. Last year, 1 week before Donald Trump publicly announced sweeping tariffs, which increased costs for U.S. companies and businesses, Hegseth sold shares of some of the biggest U.S. companies, Walmart, Apple, and Costco. After Donald Trump announced the tariffs, a lot of companies saw their share prices go down. Did Pete Hegseth have advanced knowledge of the tariffs and notify his broker in order to protect the Hegseth investments? Well, it certainly looks that way, just as it looks, according to the Financial Times, that Hegseth and or his broker thought there was a profit that could be made off of Donald Trump's decision to attack Iran. Now, one of the confusing terms that is being thrown around in all of this is a defense ETF. So let's go there just for a second. An ETF is essentially a collection of investments, such as stocks, bonds, or commodities, that are bundled together into a single fund. The fund is then bought and sold on an exchange throughout the trading day, just like a stock. ETFs are designed to provide diversification, allowing investors to gain exposure to hundreds of different securities. So a defense ETF would not invest in just one military contractor, such as Northrop Grumman, which produces the B-2 stealth bomber. Rather, the defense ETF would invest in several military contractors, including companies like Raytheon, which produces missile systems, and Boeing, which produces F-15 fighters. The point is that if a general industry, say defense companies, are about to get really busy with new orders connected to a war, a defense ETF would be a great investment. Now, it's not just Pete Hegseth who allegedly tried to profit from the war. Other apparent Trump insiders have actually made a series of remarkably timed investments and wagers.
In the days before the Iran war, before the US and Israeli operations began, we saw a surge in bets by a handful of traders on those prediction sites, accurately placing bets that the Iranian regime was about to come under fire in that way, and that raised questions. That then sort of faded into the background. A couple of weeks later, there was a similar situation where just before President Trump put out a social media post that moved the market on the oil price significantly 15 minutes before, a huge value of bets were placed on the futures market, and oil futures contracts changed hands 15 minutes before a post went out that moved the markets, which made whoever placed those very well-timed bets incredibly wealthy and made them a lot of money.
This kind of market manipulation would normally be investigated by the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. The SEC is a U.S. government agency that is supposed to protect the markets from misconduct and promote fairness and efficiency. But the SEC hasn't said a word publicly or launched any investigations into the pre-war bets or the oil trading. Perhaps relatedly, the Trump administration last year reconfigured the SEC leadership, disbanding enforcement efforts against markets the Trump family had heavily invested in, such as crypto. So if Donald Trump's family, friends, or insiders are investing now based on private information about the war, the SEC might look the other way. As congressional Democrats have stated throughout the U.S. government, because of Donald Trump, the corruption runs deep. Thankfully, there is nothing, at least at the moment, stopping some media organizations from taking a closer look. And so we get reports like the one in the Financial Times about Pete Hegseth. Did the Secretary of Defense really try to profit off of the Iran war? Well, the story is not going away. And the investigations, at least by journalists, have just begun. Did you know that the big wireless carriers like Verizon and AT&T made over $18 billion in profit last year? How? By overcharging you for unlimited data, most of which you probably aren't even using. But what if you could get paid to use your phone less and only pay for the data you do use? Well, with Noble Mobile, you can. For just $50 a month on their No Bull plan, you get unlimited data, and whatever data you don't use, you get cash back right in your pocket. People who switch to Noble can save an average of $500 to $1,000 a year. It's a no-brainer. And by switching to Noble, you're directly supporting TYT and our mission of bringing you honest, independent news. So give Noble a try and make the switch today. Scan the QR code on the screen now or visit go.tyt.com/plan. That's go.tyt.com/plan. By the way, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is crumbling under direct questioning about alleged negotiations between the United States and Iran. On ABC's Good Morning America, Rubio tried to justify the ongoing war against Iran by unloading on regime leaders.
And their continuing move towards one day acquiring a nuclear capability, these people are lunatics. They are insane. They are religious zealots who can never be allowed to possess a nuclear weapon because they have an apocalyptic vision of the future. And all of their neighbors know that, by the way, which is why all of their neighbors have been supportive of the efforts we're conducting.
You call them lunatics, but the president just had this post where he says we're in discussions with a new and more reasonable regime. Let me try to pin you down on that. Who is this new and more reasonable regime? Is the United States in direct contact with them?
Well, I'm not going to disclose to you who those people are because it probably would get them in trouble with some other groups of people inside of Iran.
Check out that video at the link below. I'm David Shuster. Thanks for joining us.